What's going on? So today I'm going to be assembling my head. If you want to see how to disassemble a head, I did another video on that. I actually just finished recording it, but I'm going to make this separate. But I'm going to be going through everything as far as installing your valve springs, the new retainers, seats, the seals. I'm going to be going all over all of that. Installing cams and swapping cams, that's going to be in a later video. But I'm going to get into everything that you need to know about installing your valves and such forth. So let's get straight into it. So I got everything right here that I'm gonna be using. Got the Ferrera valves, the Brian Crowler springs and retainers. I got the Ferrera valve seals. I got my tool. I got my assembly lube. I got my keepers. I'm using the original keepers. I did do a video showing all of the components that I'm using. I will go ahead and just show the part numbers real quick just for reference in this video. This will be the intake and the exhaust. And there's your part numbers on the valve seals. This will be exhaust. This will be intake. And then this is just the tool that you use to compress the spring on. They're all pretty much the same, so you can really find any one, and it's gonna work for you. And I just got some assembly lube. There's many different brands. This is all that my local hardware store had in stock, or my local auto parts store had in stock. But it's gonna work for us. So let me get you guys set up, and I'm gonna show you what I'm gonna start with doing first. I'm gonna start to put my seats on. They're the valve spring seats. It is very easy to tell the difference between the top retainer and the valve spring seat. So this one's gonna go at the bottom, that one's gonna go at the top. Pretty much only one of them is going to be able to fit over the hole at the bottom. And this is going to be for the top because it's going to lock into the valve spring, and that's what my keeper's going to sit into. So, you know, one side has grooves on it, one side's flat. Put the flat side down, grooves up, that's what's going to hold your spring in place. I'm just going to go ahead through and put all of them on this side. This is the intake side, by the way. I'm going to be working on first. All right, so I got all those on. I'm just going to take some of my assembly lube. I'm going to put a little bit on my finger. I'm just going to go around all the valve stem guides. Just kind of wipe all the way around it. This is going to help that once we put the seals on, it's going to help it go on there nice and smooth and make it have a good seal. So go all the way down and do this. All right, so I got my intake valve seals out, and I'm just gonna grab a 10mm socket with an extension on it, because this actually fits perfectly over this. They do make certain tools, but it's really not needed. I see a lot of people just use this method. So since I've already got my assembly lube on there, all I'm gonna do is set this right on top. And then I'm gonna use the pressure on the back of my extension, and I'm gonna push it down. All right, so I was having a little trouble with the camera being in the way. So I moved it out the way, I got these first three pushed on there, and I will say I was kind of skeptical whether it was actually all the way down or not. But after further inspection, if you look at the very inside of this ring at where it actually seals onto, I don't know if we'll be able to focus on it. You'll see those little ridges inside of there. And really that first ridge is just past the ridges that you see on here. Those two ridges. See those two ridges? So right here, we're actually locked all the way down and good. So I'm gonna set you up on this one. All right, so now I got you set up. I'm just gonna put one on. It's nice and simple. Set it on there. Hold the head. Done. it's on there. And it's that simple. So I'm just gonna go ahead and finish the rest of them on the intake side, and then I'll get back right to you. So I got all of the seals on. I went ahead and pulled out a couple of the valves. I'm just gonna go ahead and open the package. So all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take a little bit of the assembly lube. Just a thin layer, and I'm gonna put a thin coat onto my valve. I'm gonna stop right where there's that little indentation. You don't need assembly lube past there. You don't need to coat the bottom of the valve. You're just doing the rod. And all this is gonna do is help you slide into the guide as well as through the seal easier. Make sure there's no friction, and it gives it a nice good seal. So I'm gonna start with my cylinder one. Cylinder one's always gonna be the closest to the timing chain side of the engine, which is this one right here. And my intake side is gonna be this. So I'm gonna go ahead and put both of these two in for my cylinder one. All right, so I just took some pieces of cardboard, cut them up so that it fits nicely in that little hole right there. So right now I'm gonna try to use just 4 pieces. Pretty much what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna set these right here. I'm gonna lay the head down, and what it's gonna do is once I'm trying to install the spring, it's gonna prevent that, that valve from being able to push back out. So this is what I'm gonna do. I'm just gonna go ahead and lay it down, and I'll show you the top view. All right, so this should work. Pretty much, since I got that cardboard underneath it, you know, if I push down on the stem of this valve, it'll go down a little bit, but it bounces back up because that cardboard is right there and it's kind of pushing it. It's keeping it in place where it's at now. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and grab my valve spring, slide it right on over this one. Then I'm gonna grab my tool. And all this is gonna do is gonna sit in these 2 bolts right here and bolt down. So let me get her bolted down. All right, so I got my tool all set up. Got both of these snug down. They don't have to be super tight, just snug. Then I got my bolt on my left side. There is 2 holes in the top of this. And so you can do this valve and then this valve. We're gonna start right here. So what this is, it has a little cup with it, with a little viewing window on one side. And this screw on the top kind of has a ball end to it. So pretty much what you're gonna do is you're gonna set your top retainer onto your spring. And then you're gonna take your cup and put it right on top of your spring. Kind of get it to set on there. And you wanna get it under. Let me back my screw out just a little bit. There we go. You wanna make sure you get everything lined up. There. So now I got my retainer sitting in there, spring sitting on there straight. I can look into the hole, see that my valve is still aligned, and we're good. So I'm gonna grab 2 keepers. Remember, I'm just using my OEM keepers. You know, as long as there's nothing wrong with them. The only way you would see anything wrong with them is if they were broken in multiple pieces. You know, it comes in just 2 pieces. If it was broken or there was cracks on them or anything, you wouldn't want to use those anymore. So let me show you. So that's my keeper right there. So you can see there's like a little line in there. It's like a little indentation. So that line is going to go toward the top. So I'm going to set both of these in there. Let me take this back off and I'll put it in there before I put this little cup on. It's a little hard to get to. I got my keeper sitting in there now. Got it back in, lined up straight. So I'm just gonna grab my 17 millimeter, which is what's gonna be this top bolt. I'm just gonna put my finger over top of the keepers to hold them down as I'm tightening this bolt. Once I get this bolt far enough down, it's gonna start pushing the keepers out until the point where the valve stem can poke through them. Once it pokes through them, the keepers will drop into place and they'll be holding the valve stem, and then I can relieve the tension on the spring. Pull it back out. And there we go. Got the first one installed. So if you look at it right there, you can see the keeper around the valve stem right there. Kind of seats right there around the retainer. So it's pretty much the same thing going all the way down. So I'm just gonna work on that. Oh, like I did say earlier, all you have to do for the same cylinder on each side, you'll just take back this screw all the way out, and you're just gonna move it over to the other hole, and that'll allow you to do the other spring. And we're moving on. All right, I got this whole side completed. So I'm actually gonna move over to the exhaust side. Now, as I'm working on the exhaust side, I'm gonna stop back in and kind of show you some tricks, as well as some tips and tricks, as well as what to do when you get into certain situations. So let me flip it around and I'll get started on that side. All right, I got this side all set up. Put the bottom spring seats in, put all of the valve sieves on. I went ahead and put the first two valves in, put the assembly lube on the shaft just like I did the first time, and just getting this first spring and the retainer together. I just wanted to show you this. So see if the camera will want to pick it up. If you can kind of see in there that left keeper is sitting a little bit higher than the right one. I've noticed that if you start off with these being completely level, it works out a little bit better. So all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take it from the back side, and I'm gonna stick my my pick tool in there. I'm just gonna kind of push up the one that's sitting a little lower, and then while doing that, just keep my hand pushed on there, or keep my finger pushed on that, and that'll even the two out. Another thing I'm gonna suggest is that you go ahead and put a little bit of assembly lube onto this bolt. Especially, it just helps it kind of glide through better. You know, put it on one side where you're doing one side, put it on the other. Once you put it on there once through both holes, you're good. You won't have that issue anymore. I also would take some assembly lube and just kind of put it into this little divot here. If you don't have the assembly lube in that little divot, as you're trying to tighten stuff up, this whole cup is going to try to turn with it. Once it gets to a tighter tension, the cup is going to start turning. And if you got your finger in there, it's going to be trying to turn against your finger. So you just put a little bit of assembly lube in there once. You should be good. If it starts tightening up again, just put a little bit more inside that little hole. All right, so just put the spring in there, put my little cap on there, and I just ran down this top bolt until it's just making contact. So, and then you want to go in, just kind of feel all the way around the spring, like compared to the bottom of this cap, and just kind of make sure that it's even all the way around to ensure that it's going to push down properly and that valve will come up perfectly in the center. All right, trying to get a good angle. So you can kind of see in there. So the far side keeper, the one that's away from us, has dropped into place already. And this one on the right side is kind of pushing up. So it's okay. Once that other one drops into place, you just want to keep your pressure onto this outside one and try to push down on it as you keep cranking until the top little seal, the top little indention meets the top of the other indention that's on the valve. So just going to keep pushing down on that. So one issue that I have had, if sometimes the valve might push this out, and if the keeper falls down, we'll handle that once we get to it. I'm sure with this whole side that'll happen again, so I'll be able to demonstrate that. All right, so I got that one pushed down in there. It actually seated down good for me. It didn't act up this time. So that's how it's gonna look. And then I'm just gonna back my pressure off of it. And those keepers are just gonna seat down in there as the spring compresses back up. Once it doesn't spin anymore, spin it a little bit by hand, then you can take this out and it's installed. All right, so what I was talking about happened here. So as you can see over here, that my keeper, one of the keepers fell out, but the one on this closer side dust is still in there. So I'm just gonna take my little pick tool that I have right here. And I'm just gonna pull that back up out of there. So they're both out. Now I'm decompress the spring, pull it back out, put the keepers back in there, and try it again. All right, so I wanted to show you guys, this is what I mean. If you don't go ahead and pull that other one out with the pick, then it's just gonna wedge to one side and it's still gonna be stuck in there. So I'm just gonna have to decompress it again and pull it out now. But if you just go ahead and pick it out the first time, you won't have to decompress it and then recompress it, and just makes life easier. All right, guys, something I did just notice that I messed up on a few of them. So see how the compressed part is at the bottom of this one, but it's at the top of this one. So I actually had never dealt with ones that were like that. Most of the aftermarket valves it's all one piece, so it's all coiled the same. It doesn't make a difference on which way you put it in. With these, the coiled part actually has to go toward the bottom. So this would be correct and this would be incorrect. So I have to go through and swap these around, just a few of them, and put it on the correct way. I actually called the Brian Crowler, and I actually talked to him himself, and he informed me that this would be the correct way to do it. All right, so I got it all finished up. Looks great, nice and clean. All right, guys, that's gonna wrap up this video. I hope you found it helpful, and I hope you now have the knowledge to attempt it on your own. If you haven't already, check out the other videos on my channel. I've got a bunch of stuff going on with this engine build as well as my RSX build. So check that out. A whole bunch of stuff coming in the future. And I hope you enjoyed the video. If you really found like this was valuable information, go ahead and give your boy a thumbs up, and I'll see you on the next one.